welcome to the Music Shack podcast. This is episode number 67. This week you're joined by myself, Ron.
And Ed.
Bruce couldn't make it this week, but we're going to carry on anyway. And I think we're going to have a decent enough episode anyway, regardless.
Terrible start. Decent enough episode. Modest Ron.
But, yeah, so this week, we're going to let Ed start with what he brought to the table.
I actually have it ready.
For once.
Fuck you, Ron. No.
Okay.
Alright, well. Already off to a great start. So, I gave us Bastille new album. Well, deluxe edition to their to an album they recently released called Give Me the Future. Thought it was a very enjoyable album. It's labeled alternative on Apple Music, but it has more of a popish feel. Back to the Future was one of my favorites off this. I did like the little spoken word piece that they had called Promises, featuring Riz Ahmed.
Yeah, that was different.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I liked... I talked to you about this before we started, but pop music just seems to be more of a background thing now. But there are a couple pieces on here that are not, I don't think are like that. They actually have some energy to them. They have some more substance to them than just being, background entertainment.
Yeah.
So, some of it I like, some of it I'm not entirely too fond of, but overall it's solid for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think. So
I mean, I know you felt like there was some skippables on it. I did not. But I found it enjoyable. More or less the laid back aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really an album you'd put on if you wanted to dance and have fun. It's just a chill little album. So
right. I definitely see what they're going for. Like that is apparent. I think Back to the Future was decent. I like Promises was interesting just because of it's like a spoken word thing that was like barely 2 minutes, I think.
yeah.
See, like I said, it has stuff on here that is worth noting. But other than that, not bad.
All right. And I guess we can take a slight turn in tempo.
Just a little bit. Nothing too drastic. But we're gonna shift gears into Once Human.
Yes.
Their new record, Scarweaver. I have been anticipating this record for months now, and I am not disappointed. They know how to bring deathcore and metal, just like not deathcore, but like death metal and metalcore. They know how to blend the two together, and really give it that that punch vibe that a lot of deathcore stuff has. But you also get nice guitar melodies that usually come with traditional death metal and some metalcore choruses and whatnot. You kind of just get a lot of that layered through this entire album. And I think it's very, very well done. The vocalist, it's a female for people who don't know. She can get pretty low.
Yeah.
And I wish she would do more of her highs, and I don't know why she shifted. And she might have. I'm guessing she probably shifted in tonality and techniques because the highs were not probably. My speculation, anyway, is that she might have been doing them not entirely correctly. Because she has like a goblin-esque high, and I want to hear more of that, which is on their first record. And when they went to Evolution, it completely shifted to what it is now. So I'd like to see a revisit to it, but I don't know. But I'd also like to know why they went away from it. But yeah, she can get pretty low, and I do enjoy it a lot.
I on the topic of switching from highs to lows in remember how I was working on my highs,
Mm-hmm.
and my highs were pretty good. But since I had COVID, I can't hit my highs without feeling some form of discomfort in my you know, in my vocals and shit. And it's easier for me to do lows without feeling any discomfort. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why they switched. I'm not, I have no issue with it, but I'm just curious. Because this is now the second album that we don't have that type of vocal, and I just want to hear her do it once. I think it would be a nice, like, little contrast. But, Deadlock, I think, is probably one of my favorites off of this.
My favorite song off of this album is Deadlock.
Yeah. I think it has to be.
Like, it's the one that stood out to me the most when I listened through this album. And
I think it was the first one the first single they put out for this, too.
I mean, the album is very good. It's a very good listen, but Deadlock is phenomenal.
Deadlock, honestly, I think that is the best one on here. In terms of, like, I don't want to say overall, because a lot of people like different things. I want to say overall energy is probably it's probably the best one, because like when you get to that chorus, it's catchy for one, which is hard to do in death metal, and it hits you every time, and you know it's coming.
Yeah.
But I did like Eidolon.
Mm-hmm.
I did like Erasure, and I did like Only in Death, which is the ending one. So, like I said, overall, it's very solid, and I think probably those are my top three.
Yeah, it's a 41-minute album, but it doesn't feel that way.
No, it does
when
not.
when the last song ends, you want more.
Mm-hmm.
Which that is the sign of a really good album. Is having the album end and you wanting more. One of the people I think is really good at leaving you want more, because he tends to have his albums rather short, is somebody who we talked about the past 2 years on this podcast. No other than Tech-9.
Mm-hmm.
Fear Exodus, 8-song album, but you want more when the album's done. The Blight EP, featuring, can't think of his name right off the top of my head. After that's done, you want more, and it's only a 6-song EP. So,
yeah, it was Tech-9 and Hush for that one.
but it's always good to leave your fans wanting more, or to leave somebody like me, who it's the first time I'm listening to an album by Once Human, wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
You should never have an album that has filler.
No, never.
Like, just because I want more, I don't want filler. I want more of the quality that's on the album.
Yeah, I think that's been lost in translation over time with the whole streaming aspect now. But
I mean, before that, there was album filler. There's always been album filler. It's just the streaming aspect has caused people to put a lot more filler on their albums.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it just goes to show, like, this is something like the more well crafted something is, the less you can give. Which then makes people go like, okay, where's the rest of it? Where's, part 2, basically?
yeah.
Because, this is like a typical length for their records. Their first one was 12 songs. and it was about 44 minutes. Evolution is 9 songs, about 44 minutes. Now this is 10 songs, about 41 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is typical for them. So it's really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
There was something me and you were talking about. If we're done with this, before the pod, about how we believe that the early 2000s had to be one of the better eras for music, probably the best era in our lifetime. The pop that came out was immaculate. The metal that came out was great. I mean, new metal was a beautiful thing.
Yep.
The rap, I think the rap was some of the best rap that, I've heard in my lifetime. So, and even the country was good in the early 2000s. So, I know Ron has nothing to say about the country in the early 2000s because Ron doesn't.
I just don't like country to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely a time for people in your generation, my generation, and where it for what we grew up with it. We didn't grow up with everything. Some of us grew up with stuff in the 80s and the 70s and whatnot.
Yeah.
Depending on the genre, but for branching out into what we wanted to listen to, early 2000s has been such a great time for music, I feel, in general overall, because you have so many different groups, so many different artists that really cemented themselves with their first records.
Yeah.
And we bring them up on a lot on here, but a good example is Linkin Park. Linkin Park dropped Hybrid Theory in 2000. And it was new metal. It was this new take on rock music, basically, mixing rap elements with it. And they did it in such a way that nobody else had done before. And they're one of the few groups that also didn't use any harsh language in their first record. And they did that on purpose. They did that to prove a point that you don't have to write music like this and have a whole bunch of curse words and slurs in it, and have it be just as good. They did that was a thing they wanted to do, and Hybrid Theory has gone on to be one of the best albums to ever be released.
Yeah, I believe Linkin Park has got to be the best band in our lifetime.
I would agree.
For the way that they had songs that touched everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Their softer stuff touched, their harder stuff touched. They were able to reach out and touch almost everyone. There was multiple walks of life that were depressed at Chester's passing.
Yep.
So, and it just cemented my belief that Linkin Park's probably the best band of our lifetime by seeing that. And growing up, I was exposed to a lot of Metallica.
Yep. So
80s Metallica. Not 80s and some of the 90s Metallica. Pearl Jam. But, I was exposed to things outside of the 90s. Well, outside of the early 2000s. But for me, the early 2000s takes the cake. I listen to a lot of music from the 60s, too, so.
Right. Yeah, so I grew up on, hair metal, because my parents would play Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Twisted Sister, AC/DC, all these staples. But I also grew up with Southern rock, because, Led Zeppelin's a thing.
Yeah, Leonard Skinner.
And I like it, and I appreciate it, but, when I started branching out and finding my own sound that I wanted to hear, I was drawn to, Green Day. I was drawn to Sum 41, All American Rejects, a little bit of Avril Lavigne. Don't understand that one still.
Hey, you like what you like.
Yeah, and just all these other groups of the similar style for that pop punk side from the early 2000s, like Simple Plan, a little bit of We the Kings, and stuff like that. And then I started getting into my heavier stuff about early 2010s. So that's when I started listening to A7X, like actually knowing who they were, because I previously heard a couple songs in a couple different racing games that I had growing up, not knowing who it was. I was like, oh, I like the song. Found out who it was. I was like, oh, okay. And that kicked off, and then I got to where I am now. But like, the early 2000s is such a different time when it came to music, because you had all these different. You had substance in it, just about everything.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the takeaway from it.
Like today, it seems like music is hit or miss.
Yeah.
And that's with all genres. But yeah, the early 2000s were great.
There was something for everybody, no matter what it was.
Yeah.
Because there's certain songs out of just about the big three genres minus country that everybody listens to, that I go back and listen to from time to time just because they're so good.
I mean, country had songs that I still go back to, from that era. But yeah, it was a good era for music.
You can also hear the difference in the styles for the time too, of like
Yeah.
what was popular. Like if you go back and listen to that and listen to what we have now for each genre, you can hear the differences.
Yeah.
I bring this up because I was in a party with one of our friends online, and he sent me a song prior to me hopping on. I went and listened to it. I was in a party with him, and I broke it down of like, oh, this is what it sounds like. This is the era and style that it came out of, and that was actually pretty good, which was "Villain" by Wildfire. Which I can play at the end if you want once we're done, because it actually is pretty decent. And I started breaking that down. And I was like, this is the era it came out of, so this is what it sounds like to me, and this is what I like to hear overall. So to me, it was a good song. Because the song came out in 2015, so it had that metalcore vibe from the early 2010s of like early Motionless in White, somewhat early Falling in Reverse, that type of style, with more of a general rock structure almost kind of thing, and you have the catchy chorus and everything like that, with a couple different areas of screaming depending on what band you were listening to. So that's kind of what I had out of it. That's what I took away from it. So yeah, it's stuff like that. Like you can hear the differences in terms of what was popular at each point.
Well, that's what all music, like, you can almost guess the year that a song came out from listening to something from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, 2010s, 2020s.
Mm-hmm.
You can guess the decade by the sound. And that's one of the things I find very intriguing.
Right.
You know? Blues, on the other hand, it's hard to guess the decade. Because when people make blues music, they go for a certain tonality and a certain sound and a certain BPM,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it hard to guess it. But with electronic music, you can guess the decade it came out in by the sound of it. And
The different types of effects they have in there,
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff.
even though with like house music, they tend to stick to 140. You know, with dubstep, they tend to try to stick to 140. With a form of rap in the UK called grime, they tend to try to stick to 140, but there's a sound difference
Mm-hmm.
in the genres, in the styling. I went through some early 2000s grime this week, and you could just hear the different sound in the music and what they were rapping about and everything, and you could tell the difference between modern grime and early 2000 grime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting. I do love how each decade seems to have its own sound, even transcending genres. There's there's just something that tells you this was made in the 90s.
Right. Yeah, no, it's like overall, just it's interesting to hear the different parts of music that even if you're not like accustomed to knowing the differences to actually pick them out of songs, you can still figure out kind of when certain things are written. It's there's something about it that each element that you tend to hear, or even structure, you just kind of figure it out. Which is, it's just gonna be interesting to like know that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how any other way to say it other than it's just an interesting concept.
I mean, one of the things I loved about 90s rap was it told a story. Same thing with late 90s, early 2000s country. Told a story. You know, it wasn't about having a lifted truck and drinking beer. Like, yeah, there's more to it. They sung about their lives.
Right.
You know, same thing in rap. It wasn't about doing drugs and, you know, shooting at people. You know, while there was violence and drug references in the music, they were telling a story behind it. You know?
Good example is Eminem, once we got to him.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff was about personal things that had happened, like, as his career shaped.
I mean, brain damage.
Toy Soldiers.
Yeah.
Like, even Mockingbird.
A Mockingbird was a very...
That album was just good.
It had its standouts.
But, yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But, I also had a single, which was the new Papa Roach one.
Okay. I didn't know Papa Roach had a new single.
Yeah, it's called Stand Up. It came out in January, but I found it out last week. I like it. It leans more into the rap element that he's been trying to do. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good. It's got a good got a hook to it for the chorus, which I think is interesting. For how it's styled. So yeah, I liked it. Other than that, I have nothing else.
All right. We can move into the billboards. I'll start us off with the artist chart.
I'm gonna pull mine up real quick.
Back up to number 1 from number 2 is The Weeknd. Down 1 spot to 2 is Adele. Up 2 spots is Ed Sheeran. Up 3 spots is Doja Cat to 4th. Up 1 spot is Taylor Swift to 6th. Up 3 spots is Drake at 6th. A re-entry, The Grateful Dead is at 7. That's an interesting re-entry.
There's an anniversary somewhere.
Okay.
Probably, like, or they're commemorating something. There has to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do enjoy their shit. Morgan Wallen is up 2 spots to 8th. Luke Combs is up 3 spots to 9th. And Justin Bieber is up 1 spot to 10th. That is the top 10 of the Billboard Artist 100.
So the Billboard, moving to the Billboard 200, the Encanto soundtrack is still number 1. The Weeknd went to number 2 with Dawn FM. Gunna stayed at 3 with DS Forever. Morgan Wallen went to 4 with a double album. Youngboy Never Broke Again went to 5 with Colors. Adele stayed at 6 with 30. Drake stayed at 7 with Certified Lover Boy. The Weeknd also stayed at 8 with The Highlights. Doja Cat went to 9 with Planet Her. And Olivia Rodrigo went to 10 with Sour.
Alright.
She was out of the top 10 previously. Just shut up.
Gotcha.
From 12.
Gotcha. So, moving on to the Hot 100. We Don't Talk About Bruno is still at number 1.
Yeah, I've not seen the movie, but apparently that is like one of the better songs. And it's like the popular song that everybody is listening to right now.
Gotcha. Easy on Me by Adele is still at number 2. Heat Waves by Glass Animals is still at 3. Stay by the Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber is still at 4. Not a lot of movement here. Super Gremlin by Kodak Black is still at 5. ACDEFU by Gala is up 2 spots to 6th. Shivers by Ed Sheeran is down 1 spot to 7th. Surface Pressure by Jessica Darrow is up 1 spot to 8th. Pusha P by Gunna featuring Future and Young Thug is down 2 spots to 9th. And Need to Know by Doja Cat is up 1 spot to 10th. And that would be the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Coming up is our break. When we come back from break, we'll talk about music news, recent releases, and probably wrap up from there.
Yep.
Looking to start a podcast? Buzzsprout makes it really easy. Get your show listed on every major podcast platform with little hassle. You will join over 100,000 other podcasters already using Buzzsprout. You'll get a really good website with audio widgets you can use on other websites, tools to help you promote your show, detailed analytics, and more. Follow the link to get started. It'll let Buzzsprout know that we sent you. If you sign up for a paid plan, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card, and you'll be directly supporting us here at Music Shack Pod. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to get a podcast out there.
All right. All right, we're back. We're going to start off with the news. You want to start this off, or you want me to?
No, I can.
Okay.
So on thanks to Loudwire, on February 11th, there was an article posted where they went through an interview with Slash, and he explains how technology has kind of changed the heart and soul of rock and roll music. I skimmed through it. I'm gonna do it again here, and he kind of has a point. So before anybody jumps up in arms, going, "Oh, he's doing the thing akin to what Kiss did and saying that rock music's dead." No, that's not what this is. 'Cause I guarantee you someone's gonna say it. So
The pre-argument.
yes.
Pre-arguing.
So what he says is that it's hard. He's like he goes through and says, the article starts off saying, like, these days technology makes a lot of tasks really easy to do, including making music. But when it comes to people who've been playing beforehand, when you actually had to play through everything, Slash comments and says that it's harder to play by yourself because you actually have to go through from one end to the other, from start to finish in a song. You have to remember everything, all the transitions, all the tempo changes and stuff like that. But he also says, like, you're all fucking musicians. You should know how to do this anyway. It's what you're supposed to do, in a sense. And he goes on to say that there's that leaning on technology that we have now kind of takes away that aspect of, like, I have to get this right. He's saying, and he says, like, the technology we have is great, and he's not knocking or anything like that, but it's like, he thinks that it's with what we have now as tools, is that it's gotten to a point where it's become more of a priority to use the technology and then to actually focus on the music itself. And he even goes on to say, like, he acknowledges that, like, pop, hip hop, and EDM are more of a mosaic of sounds.
Yeah.
So he understands, like, in that aspect it makes sense. but when it comes to rock and roll, he's like, he brings up like rock and roll, blues, live R&B, and classical, and he says like, this is music it's music that inspired people to play together. And you have these, it's an ensemble of things that thrive off the energy and interaction of everybody playing together, which is why I think live shows are such different experiences, because everyone's rehearsed, everyone's playing together. You have the energy of the crowd feeding off of that, adding to that excitement. And he says like that he thinks that sort of aspect when recording has been lost because you're able to just file share different parts of songs and you're able to just cut things together without necessarily having to play through everything. And he thinks that that's what's part of the issue of the soul of rock and roll not really being there and changed without people even realizing it.
My whole thing is the soul of all music has changed. Not just rock.
Right, but I mean who he is, that's what he's going towards. And I don't want to cut you off. I don't mean to cut you off, but like, he has a point, because you and I have different views on rock music now, like dirty rock,
yeah,
and everything. There's part of it missing for me, and I don't know what it is. And it, he could have, like I said, he has a point in a sense, and that could be what I think is missing, but I don't actually know. Whereas you enjoy most of it for, despite how different it is.
I enjoy dirty rock because it has a bluesy feel to it. An up-tempo, bluesish feel. And that's what I enjoy about it. But he is right to say that the soul of music has changed. But you can still find soul in music today.
Right.
R&B.
He's not saying that you can't.
Yeah.
It's just that it's changed in such a way that, for him at least, he's saying that it's not what it was. But
to be honest with you, I never got much of a soul vibe from rock and roll. I've gotten a vibe from the sound of the band playing in unison. Well, you can kind of feel the vibe of a band that was in the studio together, and how they meshed. Yeah, you could actually almost feel when a band didn't mesh well in the music, as opposed to a band that did mesh well. It's hard to describe, but in the recording, you could actually kind of tell. Especially when, say, the lead singer didn't mesh well with the guitarist,
right.
The lead guitarist, because you get the lead doing a solo with the lead singer trying to do crazy shit with their vocals and they're just kind of battling each other on the same song.
Right.
Like, they're not giving each other space to do what they can do. I don't know, I haven't really... Again, I never really felt any soul in rock music. Just like how I never felt any soul in rap music. The only time I ever felt soul in music was blues, and R&B. To me, most music just didn't seem to have much soul at all. That's just me. And that might be just my definition of soul. My definition is like, I mean, I guess you could say some of the Linkin Park songs had soul, because they had a feel to them.
Right.
Like you could feel what they were singing about. But again, that's just me.
Yeah, I just think and that could just be a generational thing too.
Well,
which is probably what it is.
I mean, with a lot that has to do with older musicians talking about newer music and newer musicians talking about older music, there is that generation gap, which causes the feeling that what they've done or what they're doing is better than what they were doing or what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that generational gap does cause there to be that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, because he Slash even went on to say like the new album that he did with Miles Kennedy, which is titled 4. It's while recording it, they had moments where they would actually go back and cut it. Like if they were mid performance, they would cut and go and do it again and whatnot, and like try to get the mix better while on the other side. Because they didn't like how it came through the headphones or whatever.
Yeah.
They would stop mid play and actually go and do all that kind of stuff, and they would play it, like redo it all.
Yeah. But
So-
that makes sense.
right.
I mean, the guitar is not meant to be recorded and looped. It's meant to be played through.
Right.
You know what it sounds like when a guitar is looped.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound all that good. He knows this because I did loop a guitar on something I was experimenting with, and it did not sound as good as if someone played the guitar through. But moving on. Kodak Black is in the news again. This time under a lot more upsetting circumstances than the prior kind of fun circumstances he winded up in the news for. He got shot. Outside of a it says here, according to NBC, there's been plenty of people reporting on it. There was a fight that broke out. Let me see if I can find out exactly where. But they say that there's like a fight that broke out, and they can't really figure out how. But during the scrap, 10 shots got fired, 4 people got shot. Kodak Black was one of the 4. Kodak got rushed to the hospital. Another guy got taken to the hospital as well. And the 2 other people who got shot actually drove themselves to the hospital.
Champions. That's hard to do.
Yeah. Those guys are definitely built different to get shot and go, okay, I'm going to drive myself to the hospital.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even get up if they fall after getting shot. It's like that's
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, that's some strength. But I just don't understand how a fist fight could turn to gunshots. It comes down to there being an issue with society, but to not get political, I think this is like the second time in the last 6 months we've talked about a rapper getting shot. Yeah, Young Dolph unfortunately died after being gunned down outside of a bagel shop. Like, I just don't understand why people are feeling the need to try to remove each other from this world at the rate that they are. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Hopefully, Kodak Black and the other 3 people that were shot fully recover from their injuries. But it's just, I don't know. There's something that needs to be done about American culture. Like, we just seem to feel the need to kill each other, and it just doesn't make sense.
No, it does not. But here's another one. Dave Draymond, frontman of Disturbed, says that without streaming, there would be no music industry. And he takes us on a little history lesson, attributing to the whole Spotify thing with Joe Rogan and Neil Young. he offers some positives where these streaming services have actually helped. He did this on Twitter. He says that everybody attacking Spotify, young and old, would do well to remember a couple things called music piracy and BitTorrent sites. Before streaming took hold, both artists and the very music industry itself were on the verge of collapse.
LimeWire.
And LimeWire. And he says why before answering. He asks the question why before giving his answer. And he says, because the heads of the music labels at the time refused to see the future where a young Sean Fanning and Sean Parker, the guys behind a little startup called Napster, approached them in a new way to reach their consumers at unprecedented levels, and they were ultimately shot down by the music industry. So instead, they decided to start up Napster and let it do its thing completely for free.
Which is why they got sued by Metallica.
Yes, but it paved a whole entire road for these streaming services to eventually become a thing with all the laws in place and everything like that.
Yeah.
To become as popular as they are. And we also had, to early 2000s, records were phasing out. You had CDs coming in, but CD sales were not that great.
Yeah.
And as soon as streaming took hold, everything changed. Everything went the other direction and started trending upwards. Now you have all these different streaming platforms to go listen to music on. It's more of a reach for these guys to get their music out there. You have more and more people listening to your stuff constantly, getting you the views, getting you ad revenue if you're not, if you have ads on the platform.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So,
my only issue with streaming platforms is I feel like they don't pay out enough per stream to the artist.
Mm-mm.
But the benefit to having your music on a streaming platform or podcast or whatever form of audio you do is you're able to get your music or other forms of audio out to the world. I've listened to bands that I otherwise would have never heard of. Some from India, some from Afghanistan. Like, we even talked about a single released by a Israeli artist,
right,
called CEO, by Nita.
Mm-hmm.
Nita was the artist. None of us, me, Ron, or Bruce, would have ever heard that song if it wasn't for streaming. But that is the beauty of streaming. You get to get your stuff out there for the world to hear. And if you have, you do have people like me, and I'm sure other people who like to DJ purchase the songs off of off of an Apple Music or off of a iTunes, or they have a subscription to Tidal. I know Serato, which is what I use for the small decks for the podcast and my bigger decks for DJing. They have a deal with Tidal to where you can transfer your Tidal playlist to Serato. And the cool thing about Tidal is Tidal does pay artists more than any other streaming platform. But this is not a Tidal plug. Or a Serato plug. But yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome for the free advertising.
Drayman goes on to say that streaming has made the labels profitable again, which is, that's a whole nother debate. But it's like, he says, labels have become profitable again thanks to streaming. It's made catalog artists regain a royalty stream, and piracy has become obsolete in that sense, because you just have access to it now.
Yeah, there's no real need to pirate things.
And so he says streaming has made legacy artist catalogs like Neil Young and others tremendously more valuable now. And it's created the current environment where people can stream the music that they want, and where musicians had the opportunity to sell their catalogs, which have regained their value. But he also says that he does believe that there should be a better streaming royalty rate,
Yeah,
like you were talking about,
like I was saying.
which is something other acts have also brought to the spotlight. But he does, however, say it does not take away the fact that without streaming, there would not be a music industry anymore, and that these artists who are complaining after they had already sold their catalogs for large sums of money would be liquidating their assets, and many would be struggling to survive. And there's more in this, but in the end of it, he says, like, just stop complaining, educate yourselves, and read your contracts.
Yeah, that's why before you sign any contract, you should have a lawyer look over it.
Yes. Yeah, he says, like, stop complaining, educate yourselves, read your contracts, and the whole thing is that streaming has saved music, whether you want to accept it or not.
Yeah.
And he makes a very, very good point.
Yeah, the whole reason why I was talking about the royalties was because of multiple artists I've heard complain about it.
Oh, for sure.
And multiple beat makers and so on and so forth complain about how much they made off of a stream. And how many streams they needed to actually see $100 or something. But again, they wouldn't be able to get themselves out there.
Yeah, they wouldn't have this
without
much exposure.
streaming. So
They wouldn't have this kind of exposure without it.
like I wouldn't be a fan of Bloodywood without streaming, because
Right.
I would have never knew who they were. They're a band out of India. Like, you'd think someone in South Jersey would have heard a band from India,
Right.
like, without being able to stream.
And I think on a smaller scale, if we go back to early 2000s when MySpace first kicked off, that was another outlet for artists and bands to put out music to get exposure.
Oh yeah, it was a good way to get exposure too.
And I'm bringing this up because that's what Hollywood Undead did. They started out
That's right, they did.
putting songs on MySpace, and eventually they got a record deal. Because they were so popular on MySpace. And that's where that started.
I completely forgot that's how they got up.
Yep.
The first time I was exposed to Weird Al Yankovic,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about him till he did a cover of Chamillionaire's "Ridin' Dirty,"
Yeah.
called "Ridin' Nerdy,"
Yep.
and
Which is a good cover, by the way.
I enjoyed I enjoyed Chamillionaire's version, and I got a kick out of "Ridin' Nerdy," the Weird Al version. But yeah, I remember showing my mom the song on MySpace, and my mom goes, "Yeah, that's Weird Al. He does that."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought he was some form of new act.
Nope. Turns out
'Cause-
he's been doing it for a while.
That was the first time I was exposed to him.
Yep.
So
It's like when we first had, music videos. Like, video killed the radio star. Like, that's literally what happened.
wasn't that the first music video to
Yes.
air on MTV?
Yep, I think so. Like, that was a whole era shift in the industry. Now it's shifting from that to streaming music overall.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely done. There are things that could be better, but as of right now, if we did not have it, I have to agree with Draymond here. If we did not have it, we would not have the thriving industry we have now when it comes to music.
Yeah, you'd have people making music for the fun of it, and the quality wouldn't be as good.
No, and the big groups would remain the big groups. There would be no, addition to that list.
Yeah, because the big groups wouldn't be there. Radio stations have taken a huge hit because of streaming.
Yes.
But that's because why listen to the radio when you can hear all the music you want to hear?
Right at that moment.
And if you want to hear brand new music, just go on any streaming service on Friday when most of the new music drops, and you will hear it.
Yep.
You don't have to wait for someone with a record deal and the label to reach out to a radio station and pay them to play the music. So you can hear brand new music the day it's released.
Right.
Thanks to streaming.
And speaking of new music, I think it's a good time to segue into recently released, as of February 11th.
This
and then
guy.
we can actually wrap it up after that, because I don't think there's too much more to add.
Nah. I've had some fucking rants today.
Yes, we have.
Something wrong with you. Alright. There's one more thing I wanted to say. We might or may not cover this next week. But today, the date of recording is the day of the Super Bowl. Dr. Dre and a group of people who he has signed under him, like Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, they're supposed to be center stage during halftime at the Super Bowl. Could be interesting.
So we'll probably have some comments about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to read about it.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do.
I mean, I haven't been too big on sports. That, and I'm more interested in a stupid tournament going on in Anaheim right now than, than football.
But anyway, so according to Loudwire, I have here a list of recently released records on February 11th, and or EPs. I should add that too. Starting at the top of the list, we have Amorphous with Halo, Author and Punisher with Crawler. I think it's Crawler. City of Lights came out with Before the Sun Sets. Creeping Flesh came out with And Then the Bombs Came.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Cult of Luna came out with The Long Road North. Degreed came out with Are You Ready? The Devils of Loudon came out with Escaping Eternity. Eddie Vedder with Earthling. Derish and the Chronicles came out with Hail to the Heroes. Hangman's Chair came out with A Loner. Hexen, or Heathen, might be Heathen. Heathen Hexen. They came out with a re-release of Being in Nothingness. Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate dropped Hell, California. Lionville came out with So Close to Heaven. Mary Angela Demurtas came out with the Dark Ability EP. Naked Gypsy Queens dropped Georgiana EP. Napalm Death came out with an EP titled Resentment is Always Seismic, a final throw of throws. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Near Death Condition dropped Ascent from the Mundane. Nervo Chaos came out with All Colors of Darkness. Night Cobra came out with Dawn of the Serpent. Once Human is on here, which is, I don't think that's correct. I'm actually pretty sure that came out the 4th, which is, I'm gonna double check that because I think they had the dates wrong. Yeah, no, that came out with, oh, that did just come out. Interesting. Either way, I'll find something else.
All right.
What else is on here? The new Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, which is 4. That's the record name, 4. It's just the number 4. 10 came out with Here Be Monsters. Tercival with To the Orphic Void. Trouble came out with a re-release of One for the Road Unplugged. Voivod came out with Synchro Anarchy. Zadra, or Zadra, I think it's Zadra, dropped Guiding Star, and Zealand Ardord came out with a self-title.
I won't be listening. That's a fucking lie. I seen it. I was like, oh. I've been bumping this shit out of their fucking singles still. I can't wait to hear this album.
And then it's my my list according to Loudwire.
All right, so this is new music released according to Apple Music. Snoop Dogg dropped B.O.D.R. Mary J. Blige dropped Good Morning Gorgeous. Let's see. Oh, Juicy J and Wiz Khalifa dropped Stoner's Night. Alt J dropped The Dream. Kim Petras dropped Slut Pop. $sign Not dropped the Eternal. Let's see. Yo Gotti dropped the CM10 free game, which is a deluxe album. Let's see. Spoon dropped Lucifer on the Sofa.
Okay.
Yeah, just very interesting. Kenny like Mooney dropped Time is Mooney. It's yeah,
That's funny.
it's money but spelled with a U.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Might just be pronounced money then.
It might be pronounced money, but I'm pronouncing it how it's spelled. Joywave dropped Cleanse. Brandy Hayes dropped Soleto. Oh. Solet It Volume 2 EP. Oh, Silhouette Volume 2 EP. My English is amazing. It's amazing I do a podcast with the way I can speak English. Laundry Day dropped We Switched Bodies. What else dropped? Mild Orange dropped Looking for Space. I believe that is that. I think. I keep scrolling and yep, that would be it.
All right. Yeah, so that's gonna wrap up episode 67 of the Music Shack podcast. I think this is a good episode. This is a good week.
Oh yeah.
Very good week. We had a lot of discussion, which is always good, even when we don't have a lot of music itself to talk about. Just having discussions of the industry is always nice. So yeah, overall, I think this was pretty good. I'm hoping that everybody who tuned in enjoyed it as well. And if you're new and you liked it, please go listen to the rest of our catalog of episodes. You can find us on all the major platforms, minus Pandora. So yeah, feel free to, if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the follow button, save whatever it is from your platform, and yeah, we'll see you guys. Oh, and follow us on Twitter at Music Shack Pod. We're gonna have a tweet that will say, you know, we're gonna have the episode dropping at some point. So if you want to keep up to date on that each week, follow us at Music Shack Pod on Twitter.
Yep. And we'll also try to have more updates.
Yes.
Via Twitter. Coming up in the very near future. Hopefully. But
Yeah.
Yep. As always, player one love, mosh and rate responsibly. Please stop killing human beings or shooting human beings. Just learn to love each other, please.
Yeah.
And as in the words of Bruce, have fun, don't die.
Enjoy the noise.
So